Hi, today we're talking family communication inside of family enterprises. Family enterprises get to be big, large in terms of numbers, in terms of generations, in terms of size and scope of the enterprise itself, and communication among all its stakeholders becomes complex. I'm with Arnaud from Trusted Family, and we're talking about not only his family enterprise, but other family enterprises that he works with, and the challenges of communication across the whole family and across the enterprise. So Arnaud, what challenges do we see within family enterprises?
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, many challenges. I think one of, very fortunate myself to be a sixth generation member of a Belgian family entity. The company was created, over 150 years ago. And, with the various generations, ultimately, and this is not only specific to my family, but as you transition from one generation to the next, the family gets much bigger, right? You have children, the family grows. You also have more and more members of the family spread out in different cities, around the world. I think especially at my generation, we have a lot of cousins, a lot of family members studying abroad, working abroad, living abroad. Some don't even speak, French anymore, which is our native language. So that also creates its sense of complexity as to how do you engage with the family members, how do you communicate with them. Similar with the in-laws, who play a very important role, often within the governance of families. How do you engage with them if you don't speak the same language? How do you educate them, keep them aligned with the vision? Is in itself quite challenging there. I think also as you transition over the generations, fewer family members actually have a day-to-day operations within the company. Few are really active in the business anymore. And so how do you keep them informed? How do you keep them aligned as to what the company is doing? Turns out to also be a challenge in itself to look at, to work on, as a family business.
This idea of, even though you may not have direct role, you still need to be informed of what's going on, either as a shareholder or as just a concerned family.
Exactly. I think you need to be informed to also be a responsible owner, a responsible shareholder, right? I think as a family business, your objective is to pass on the baton to your future, to your children, to the future generation in a better state, hopefully, than what you've received it. And that requires work. It requires knowledge about the company. It requires knowledge about the investments that are going on. Even though you don't play a role within the organization, you do receive dividend or receive some sort of advantage being a shareholder of a company, which requires you to actually work on that and be responsible as a shareholder.
And I would imagine that the uniformity of the information that is shared across the whole broad shareholder base and family is really important, that it's uniform, that it's the same, that it's consistent, not only in terms of content, but also possibly frequency.
That is true, Peter. And I think to add on that, I think in addition to have it be uniform, it's also making sure that everybody has access to the same information at the same time. Because otherwise you'd have people that feel, that we don't communicate certain information to, certain shareholders, or people are privileged with the type of information they get because they might be working in the business or not. And that can create a lot of friction within a family. And so being aligned on the type of information to make available and on the timing is also extremely important.
It decreases the potential for politics and power and control and favoritism, right? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. That is exactly true. And that's something you really want to avoid in the context of a family business. Especially, if you want to keep it in the long run, right? You need to really engage with all the shareholders, that it be a big shareholder or someone with a lot of shares of the company, because of course the diversity and the ownership stakes, which is another point, very important, varies across generations. And so it's really key, as the ownership stake vary, to keep everybody as if they were at the same level, right? To keep communicating and engaging with everyone in order to keep those skills and engagement within the family.
Okay. And so I would also imagine not only the complexity of the family ownership stakes starting to change in terms of amounts and who's got what, but also that the ways in which family members do contribute, either through boards or committees or things like that, that those start to rise in complexity too, because this family is starting to get quite large, the enterprise is starting to get large. And I would imagine that there's some level of activity that needs some coordination at a committee level or project level.
Exactly. And the industry, I mean, 10 years ago, we were not very well equipped in our family to actually manage our entire communication, shareholder and base. And I think, as you start growing, it's really important for families to, set up a family charter, start organizing through committees, having a board in place, which is well structured with the right agenda points, which will help prepare the family in making the right decisions and help also align the shareholders at what they can and cannot expect and do within this sphere of the family, which is also, I believe, something very important because, everybody cannot have the same voice, have the same decision power, have the same express themselves. You need to, it has to be democratic, but at the end of the day, you need to understand who are the ones taking decisions. And that needs to be very well respected and understood, I think, and that requires good governance.
So this is part 2 in our series on family communication within family enterprises. In our first one, we talked about the challenges. In this one, we're going to talk about the specific stakeholder groups, boards, shareholders, and family members, and their specific needs in terms of communication, as well as the types of ways in which that communication can happen on a regular and accurate basis. So Arnaud, let's start with boards. What kind of things do boards need to have in terms of regular communication?
Thanks, Peter. I think, as you say, right, as a family, as a company gets mature, you really need to organize your information, make sure that we mentioned everybody has access to the same information at the same time. I think is more specific to boards is the fact that you're sharing very sensitive information, right? You're sending very secure information, so you want to also trust the tool that you're working with, most importantly, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter the tool. It's about how it's really organized, set up within your board. I think it's also very important to find the right tool to help you, organize meetings, schedule them, prepare them in advance with the secretaries, with the other board members, with the chairman, in order for you to really run meetings effectively online. Taking minutes of meetings is also key, so that people who are potentially missing out on a specific meeting or, for the aftermath, you can really follow up and make sure that you're progressing in all sorts of activities and decisions that are taken at a specific board level. I think it's also key for board, and especially in today's world with everything going on, to be agile in the way boards work, to be able to take decisions quickly, sign off on documents, and for me that is really essential, because you have to continue operate as a company, as a firm, as a board, even though you cannot meet in person, and that requires for boards to be equipped.
Yeah, these activities, even before the pandemic, were crucial, but now they're absolutely vital. I mean, there's not a way to do it without. So I take that the boards really have to rely on electronic record as well as high coordination across all its different members. So let's talk about the shareholders and what their specific needs are and maybe how those needs are met.
Yeah, great. So I think that on the shareholder side of things, it's quite similar in the board, in the sense that within shareholders, you create a lot of committees, working groups, and so shareholders need to work together in between meetings and exchange. So I think delivering and storing information stays extremely relevant for the shareholder base. I believe in addition to that, it comes back to that creation of transparency, alignment within the family member. Well, so in this case, within the shareholders, which is really key. Everybody should have access to all the information, that they be a big shareholder or small shareholder of the business. They should know where it's stored. It's also a great way to prepare, because when we talk about shareholders, we can also talk about the future shareholders. So for, once your children's become 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, maybe in the US, for them to start having visibility on the decisions that were taken, and on the business itself, right? Some more confidential information, having access to that, and having a library easily accessible for shareholders and future shareholders to educate themselves is extremely precious. So keeping everybody aligned, everybody informed at the same time is essential there. I think also getting approvals from shareholders, that it be as for a specific meeting on a specific quorum to take decision. All of that is really essential, and requires also, to be equipped to be able to take quick decisions and be aligned on the documentation that's around and made available.
Yeah, so the shareholder alignment, and you alluded to that a couple times as you explained it. An electronic record allows them to, track what's been opened, what's been read, get the approvals done, same information available at the same period of time. That really promotes that transparency.
Yeah, and I hear that every time when I work with that be my family or other families, you always hear, yeah, I did not have access to the information, I did not read it, and having visibility on those statistics actually helps a lot, because the idea is not to punish one or the other shareholder, it's just to make sure that they have access to it, that they can read it, and to track statistics around it. Because if you see a shareholder hasn't opened the document, or a board member hasn't opened the document, and a meeting is happening tomorrow or next week, you might want to push a notification out and be smarter in the way that you engage with them, because there may be a lot of circumstances in life which forces you to not always be ready.
That's a great point. Are you seeing families set a target open rate of 100% or 90%, and then promoting it at the family shareholder meeting?
If you have a responsible role within the organization, like if you're a board member, if you're part of a supervisory or part of a specific committee, I think you should be forced to actually accomplish these tasks. We're just asking, and often in a lot of family businesses, those are actually also paid positions. Even a shareholder, you get paid at the end. There's some sort of interest at the end in being a shareholder, and it requires people to be, informed, spend time, and make sure that they do educate themselves or prepare for specific meetings.
So the family members, so we've got boards, we've got shareholders. What about the broader family as they start to become more equipped with ownership skills and the idea of being a good steward over a long period of time? What's their kind of information needs and their process here?
Yeah, great question. I think indeed there's those three circles. And I think, coming to my generation, I think the new generation of leaders today are more collaborative in general. They're open to collective decision-making processes, for instance, which was not always true at the generation of my parents. And that required, that collaboration, collective decision-making process, technology and is key for that. And so, on the family side of things, even though there's less strategic decision making, there's also this need to adapt to the need of this younger generation, who will soon become owners of the businesses themselves. To reach them wherever they are, that they be on their smartphones, or less and less of them actually open emails today. I see this with our generation. A lot of them are just on their phone, and it's key to be able to attract them on their phones or on their specific devices. I think facilitating also interactions between the various stakeholders of a business is key, right? Not only the shareholders, the board, but also being able to engage with the spouses who play a very important role in actually raising and educating the younger generation is essential. And they need to, or at least in our family, we include them a lot in everything we do, because we believe they are the actually key ones in driving this cohesion, and because they don't come with the background of history, which can sometimes be challenging in a family. And organizing, especially families like ours, 150 years, you have a lot of history, a lot of archive, which is so nice to be able to share, make available. You can tag people within images, you can, upload even all sorts of photos, organize meetings and events. Also, all the family gatherings that you have. Well, we try to include not only the shareholders' boards, but also the family members in them, to give them a sense of belonging also to this whole organization.